Chapter 3030, Untitled. Chen Ziyun was locked up. When Boss Feng Wu comes back, tell her to save me, Chen Ziyun shouted at Sun Yu. Sun Yu was worried about him but couldn't do anything. He and his teammates also said the crown prince was in love with Feng Wu, but Dongfang Ziyun threatened them. If you slander his royal highness again, you'll end up like Chen Ziyun. Sun Yu and the others were furious. They were telling the truth. How was that slandering? These people were unbelievable. People nowadays, what can I say? A young lieutenant colonel smirked. Why haven't I heard of her before? What's her military rank? Senior brother Jiang. Everybody made way for that man. He was from Imperial College and had been in love with Dongfang Ziyun for a while. However, he hadn't found a chance to express his feelings, so he stood up for her. Senior sister Lan said, military rank? She doesn't have that. She's still a student in Imperial College. Senior brother Jiang acted as if he couldn't believe his ears. What? A student? What makes her think she can make that claim? That's just arrogance. Sun Yu couldn't stand it anymore, and Chu Chu said, Xiao Wu is the best. You don't know anything about her. We've all seen her capability in battle. She has killed level 3 spiritual kings. Sun Yu said, that's right. Senior brother Jiang asked, has she graduated? Is she a major? A lieutenant colonel? The others were speechless. Senior brother Jiang patted Chu Chu on the shoulder. You're still too young and have seen too little. She's not even a major yet, and you're making her sound like a genius. It won't do her any good. You can brag about her when she becomes a lieutenant colonel, but you'll have to wait 10 years before that. Senior brother Jiang laughed. It took him 10 years to become a lieutenant colonel. Sun Yu and the others clenched their fists. She'll become a lieutenant colonel in a year. Chu Chu ground his teeth. Senior sister Lan smirked. A year? You better pray for her and hope she can come out of the Dayless Woods alive. Feng Wu had no idea what was happening outside. All she wanted was to find the immortal spiritual fruit. The central region. At her current level, going there would be courting death. Based on what she had learned, only generals could go there. This could be a one-way trip. However, Feng Wu took a deep breath. After all, the crown prince was injured because of her. If he hadn't challenged Zhuo Chengfeng, he wouldn't have been injured, and Night Owl wouldn't have taken advantage of that. Feng Wu hated Night Owl to the core. If she didn't take the immortal spiritual fruit, Night Owl would regain his ability and destroy their fortress. No one would be able to stop him. Therefore, she had to find the immortal spiritual fruit. Feng Wu rushed into the central region without a map or any guidance. Chapter 3031, Humiliation. She kept running into assassins. Right now, she was hiding in a tree to eat something, but somebody still spotted her. Whoosh! She heard the sound of rustling leaves. An arrow was aimed at her. She threw the rice ball at that person's face. Whoosh! She charged at him instead of trying to dodge. Fallen star sword whooshed, and a head rolled on the ground. Another level 3 spiritual king. Feng Wu was a level 3 spiritual king now, and killing other level 3 spiritual kings was a piece of cake. Feng Wu studied the dead man. He was obviously hunting her. There was a high price on her head, and her divine phoenix blood was extremely precious. If she was from the Dongsang kingdom, would she miss such a good opportunity? Of course not. Hence, Feng Wu looked around. The canopy was so thick that she couldn't see the sky above. Just then, she heard the sound of fighting. Somebody said, "You Dongsang people are despicable. You set us up." That was the language of the Junwo Empire. Was someone from the Junwo Empire fighting someone from the Dongsang kingdom? Feng Wu took out a black scarf to cover her face, then jumped from one tree to another. She reached the place where the battle was taking place in a few jumps. Hiding among the leaves, she observed the battle from dozens of meters away. She recognized the fighters. Sheng Changtian had been stabbed in the stomach. A sword had gone through his abdomen. He held his stomach, and blood was gushing out of his mouth. If he wasn't treated in time, he would die. He was one of the best students of the military academy. If he died now, it would be a hard blow to his school. Feng Wu analyzed the situation. The enemies were 5 level 4 spiritual kings and 5 level 3 ones. Sheng Changtian's team only had 5 members. The team leader was Song Yao, a level 4 spiritual king. There was a fist-sized hole in his abdomen, and his intestines were pouring out. Yang Wan, a level 3 spiritual king, suffered from a few injuries too. However, they were all superficial. It was obvious the enemies were keeping her alive because of her beauty. Sheng Changtian was severely injured. The other 2 members were covered with blood as well. The 10 Dongsang people had surrounded the team of 5. The leader of the Dongsang team smirked. He stared at Yang Wan and aimed his sword at her chest. Yang Wan was shaking with rage. She'd rather die than be humiliated like this. "Stop it, Yamano." So, that was the name of the Dongsang team's leader. Feng Wu hated men like this. Weren't Dongsang cultivators supposed to be uninterested in women and focused on their cultivation only? They were so disgusting. Yamano was even more presumptuous. With a wave of his sword, Yang Wan's dress was sliced open, revealing her arm and shoulder. Chapter 30-32, Choice. Yang Wan was shaking furiously. She knew her team would die here. To save herself from the humiliation, she put her sword to her throat. "Yang Wan. Sister Wan." The other members of the team went livid and burned with rage. They weren't afraid of death, but they couldn't stand the humiliation. "I thought the Dongsang Kingdom was a place of discipline. Do you realize what you're doing?" Sheng Changtian shouted. "You're breaking your law. You're going to be punished." Yamano snorted. "How would my superiors know? You'll all be dead." He then turned to his team members. "Guys, shall we show the girl a good time?" His teammates grinned maliciously. One of them smiled at Yang Wan. "Killing yourself won't change anything. Your body will still be warm." Yang Wan's eyes widened in despair. She didn't know what to do. Sheng Changtian ground his teeth so hard that he spat out a mouthful of blood. The other team members were as furious as he was. It was unlucky of them to run into this enemy. They weren't afraid of death, but not in this humiliating way. Feng Wu took a deep breath. She knew it. No man could hold back their urges until they were 40 years old. They were used to doing such unspeakable things to young women. Feng Wu wouldn't have it. The battle was about to end. Song Yao and his team were surrounded, and Yamano and his men laughed. They were all using identical bayonets. Yamano pointed at Song Yao with his bayonet. "On your knees. Now. Have your backs to us because we're going to have a competition. The one who can cut most accurately and make you bleed the most will be the winner." Yamano and his team enjoyed killing. Growing up in the blood tax system, they were used to elimination and death. All of them had twisted minds. Song Yao and his team had lost all hope. "Is no one coming to our rescue?" Song Yao felt the object in his chest pocket. "If somebody could save them now. If somebody could kill these people, I'll be grateful forever." Song Yao screamed in his head. "I'm not afraid of death, but I don't want to die like this." Sheng Changtian was forced on his knees, and a million things went through his mind. He thought about Yang Wan, the military academy, and Feng Wu. He didn't know why, but the last person he thought of before dying was that beautiful girl. Yamano took a portrait out of his pocket and showed it to Sheng Changtian. "Have you seen her before?" Feng Wu was about to come out, but she stopped when she saw this. Sheng Changtian glanced at it and immediately recognized the person. It wasn't a very good portrait, but her eyes were unmistakable. It was Feng Wu. "We'll spare anyone who can help us find her." Yamano tempted them. Sheng Changtian struggled inwardly. Should he tell them? He knew who she was. He had fought Feng Wu in that competition. He even knew where Feng Wu was and could lead them there. Chapter 30-33, Fight. "Do you know her? Do you know where she is?" Yamano shook the portrait. Not all Dongsang people could speak the Junwo Empire's language, but Yamano was fluent in it. Sheng Changtian felt conflicted. He had to admit he disliked Feng Wu. She had defeated him, and it was understandable if he gave her up. However, she was Feng Wu, the girl with the divine phoenix blood. Her talent was so precious to the Junwo Empire. The Dongsang kingdom wanted to catch her probably because they wanted to kill the young genius. At that thought, Sheng Changtian took a deep breath and made up his mind. I don't know her. Yamano stared at him. Are you sure? Sheng Changhan insisted. Of course I'm sure. Yamano gave him one last look before turning to Yang Wan. Given what was happening to her, Yang Wan didn't want Feng Wu to go through the same thing, so she shook her head. I don't know who that is. Yamano glared at them. You've got some integrity, but it'll only make you die sooner. The other three won't have that opportunity anymore. Go to hell. Yamano waved his hands in frustration. Cut their heads off. His teammates had been waiting for this moment, and they raised their weapons in unison. But right at that moment, Yamano felt something cold at his throat. By the time he realized what had happened, blood was gushing out of his neck. Yamano trembled. To defeat one's enemy, it was always a good idea to take out their leader first. Feng Wu couldn't assassinate so many people at once, so she killed their leader first. With him gone, his team members would be confused. It was incredible. Feng Wu moved so fast that before Yamano realized it, her dagger was in another man's throat. Feng Wu chose to assassinate the level 4 spiritual kings first. In an instant, the enemy lost 2 level 4 members. There were only 3 level 4 spiritual kings and 5 level 3 ones left. Feng Wu cut the rope that tied Song Yao's hands behind his back. Get up and kill them. No matter how talented Feng Wu was, she was still very young and was only a level 3 spiritual king. She had already gone above and beyond in killing 2 level 4 spiritual kings. She had only succeeded because the enemy hadn't seen her coming. Song Yao was astonished. He had been ready to die, but the most incredible thing happened. He grabbed the dagger Feng Wu threw at him and stabbed the level 3 spiritual king behind him in the heart. The man died before he could realize what had happened. Sheng Changtian and the others finally turned around to see what was going on. Sheng Chang'an was astonished when he saw the girl in red moving nimbly from one enemy to the next. He even rubbed his eyes, wondering if he was hallucinating. Fight! Having experienced that humiliation, Yang Wan reacted quickly and smacked Sheng Changtian on the head. Yes, of course. Sheng Changtian finally woke up from his bewilderment. Their injuries didn't matter anymore. Just fight. 3034 Girl in Red. When the Junwo Empire's team took action, the Dongsang assassins also recovered from the initial shock. The battle started. So far, the Dongsang kingdom still had the upper hand. They had 3 level 4 spiritual kings and 3 level 3 ones. With the other team, Song Yao was the only level 4 spiritual king, and the others were all level 3 and below, not to mention they were all severely injured. Luckily, Feng Wu killed Yamano first. With the team leader gone, the others were less difficult to handle. Feng Wu fought 2 level 4 spiritual kings, and Song Yao fought 1. Even then, Song Yao was swaying because of his injuries. Feng Wu knew if the battle dragged out, things would get worse for them. Come out! Feng Wu urged Little Phoenix. The bird's capability was affected by Feng Wu. When she became a level 3 spiritual king, the bird rose to the same level. Little Phoenix didn't want to get involved because fighting was so tiresome. However, Feng Wu had given the order, and the bird had to follow. It flew out of Feng Wu's sleeve and aimed at a level 4 spiritual king's eye. What happened was quicker than words could describe. The bird pecked the man's eye, and Feng Wu took advantage of that. Ground control. The man immediately slowed down. It only lasted for less than a second, but it was enough for Feng Wu. Fallen Star Sword, Stance 3. Fatal Thunder. Explode. Feng Wu channeled her spiritual essence into the Fallen Star Sword and stabbed it into the man's heart. Ah! The man died instantly. There were only 2 level 4 spiritual kings left. Feng Wu had a much easier time after that. Sheng Changtian couldn't believe his eyes. He and the others fought together and still couldn't kill 1 level 3 spiritual king. He then saw Feng Wu bury her sword in that man's chest. Sheng Changtian didn't know what to say. He felt the world had gone insane. However, Feng Wu was fighting 1 level 4 spiritual king now, and he was a junior. He panicked when he saw Feng Wu kill a teammate that was more capable than he was. Looking up, he saw his team losing ground. No! He had to get away. He turned around, only for a bird to peck his eye. Before he could do anything, Feng Wu's sword went through his chest from behind. The blade pierced his heart. He looked down at the tip of the blade that came out of his chest. This couldn't be real. He opened his mouth to say something, but Feng Wu drew out the sword, and blood gushed out. The man swayed, turned around, and stared at her in astonishment. Feng Wu had covered her face, and the assassins didn't recognize her. Feng Wu ignored him. She raised her sword when walking past Sheng Changtian. The level 3 spiritual king that Sheng Changtian and Yang Wan had been trying to kill was cut in half. Sheng Changtian didn't know what to say. Nor did Yang Wan. 3035 She's God. The Dongsang assassins couldn't recognize Feng Wu, but Song Yao and his team could. The girl in red was Feng Wu. Sheng Changtian looked at Feng Wu in bewilderment. Before long, his eyes sparkled, especially when he saw Feng Wu killing the enemy as she walked towards Song Yao. Yes, it was as effortless as it sounded. She cut off the heads of spiritual kings as easily as cutting grass. She reached Song Yao, who was in danger. Apart from the level 4 spiritual king that Song Yao was fighting, all the other Dongsang assassins were dead. The level 4 spiritual king didn't realize that until he looked around to find his teammates lying all over the ground. Moments ago, they had been competing over cutting off their captives' heads, but now, they were lying in their own blood. The level 4 spiritual king was terrified. Fear overtook him and he gave up. He only wanted to flee. Feng Wu arrived before he could do that. She kicked him to the ground, and Song Yao cut off his head. The head rolled around on the ground. No one made a sound. Leaves rustled in the wind. Song Yao, Yang Wan, Sheng Changtian and the other 2 members stared at Feng Wu in bewilderment. They now only realized how talented Feng Wu was. Aren't you a level 2 spiritual king? Sheng Changtian didn't know what to believe anymore. Feng Wu glanced at him. That's old news. Yang Wan and the others were amazed. Feng Wu had been a level 2 spiritual king when she found the Dongsang team the other day. What Sheng Changtian said astonished them even more. Sheng Changtian said, "You were only a level 1 spiritual king 10 days ago when you fought me in Imperial College." Everybody was shocked. Yang Wan forced a smile. "Sheng Changtian, are you joking?" "I'm not," said Sheng Changtian. She became a level 2 spiritual king during that battle. The others were speechless. They all looked at Feng Wu. As if making 2 breakthroughs in 10 days wasn't enough, she could also kill enemies that had higher cultivation levels than her. She had killed almost all 5 level 4 spiritual kings. Phew. Sheng Changtian told the others, "She has divine phoenix blood. It's 1,000,000 times more precious than Zhou Qingwan's true phoenix blood." Somehow, Sheng Changtian sounded so proud. Feng Wu shook her head. Weren't the 2 schools supposed to be rivals? She took out a bottle of supreme level potion and tossed it to Sheng Changtian. "Drink some and put some on your wounds. You should leave the Daedalus Woods now." She turned around after that. Sheng Changtian said, "Aren't you leaving?" Feng Wu shook her head. "I have very important things to do." Seeing that Feng Wu was heading for the central area, he hesitantly touched the object in his chest pocket. In the end, he gritted his teeth and said, "Wait." 3036 Magical Soul Vine. Feng Wu stopped and looked at Song Yao. Song Yao fumbled in his pocket and took out a piece of paper. "We found this on a capable Dongsang man." Feng Wu unfolded it and saw that it was a hand-drawn map. It points to the central region. I don't know what kind of treasures are hidden there, but… Song Yao looked Feng Wu in the eye. This map was very precious to that man. Feng Wu studied it and saw a tree marked as the end point on the map. Feng Wu was astonished. Other people might not be able to recognize the tree, but Feng Wu could. That was an immortal spiritual tree. She had seen one of these trees in northern border city before. She had come to the Dayless Woods to look for an immortal spiritual fruit. Feng Wu looked up from the map and stared at Song Yao with sparkling eyes. Song Yao nearly jumped. What? Feng Wu memorized the map and nodded at Song Yao. It's very useful. Thank you. She carefully folded the map and put it in her sleeve. Song Yao thought, does she know what the treasure is just by looking at the map? That can't be. She must be trying to comfort me. Song Yao recalled not being friendly toward Imperial College and how he mocked its students whenever he had the chance. He didn't expect Feng Wu to be so considerate. Because of that, Song Yao liked Feng Wu even more. Feng Wu said, you should leave now before more assassins detect the smell of your blood and track you down. Song Yao said, these badges. Together, the badges of the 10 spiritual kings and the essence crystals they carried were worth a small fortune. Feng Wu waved him off. Take them. I'll trade them for this map. She left after that. Despite what she said, Song Yao and his team didn't see it that way, but Feng Wu didn't know that. She ran as fast as she could toward the central region. The map was very brief and only had an outline of the place. It showed that the immortal spiritual tree was on a cliff in the center of the woods. That cliff was close to the volcano. The tree was at the center of the cliff. It would be easy to find, but that only made the trip more dangerous. Feng Wu couldn't care about that anymore. She changed her clothes because her red dress was too conspicuous. She also wore a disguise so that she looked like an ordinary girl. If Jun Linyuan were here, he would immediately recognize that face. She was the girl who had swindled him out of that immortal spiritual fruit. Feng Wu never thought she would use this mask again. It was easy for a Dongsang person to pretend to be a resident of the Junwu Empire, but the other way round was almost impossible. All Dongsang assassins were selected through the blood tax system, and after training, they all had the aura that was native to the Dongsang kingdom. The people of the Junwu Empire didn't have it, but Feng Wu did. When she was set up by her enemy, Jun Linyuan tried to save her, and had subdued the magical soul vine for her, turning it into her pet. The vine gave Feng Wu the aura of a Dongsang assassin and also enabled her to speak the Dongsang language fluently. 3037 Ruthless Character. Feng Sun and Xian Yi were looking for Feng Wu when they ran into an injured team. My lord! Thinking they were enemies, Song Yao was about to warn his team when he recognized Feng Sun. Feng Sun saw that the 5 people were all covered in blood, and their clothes were in tatters. They looked worse than beggars. You, Feng Sun frowned. What happened? Sheng Changtian knew Feng Sun was close to Feng Wu, so he said, it's all because of Feng Wu. Feng Sun and Xian Yi immediately asked, what about her? What happened to her? What Sheng Changtian said was quite confusing. Seeing that Sheng Changtian wanted to continue, Song Yao pushed him aside and told Feng Sun about Feng Wu's brave deeds. Feng Sun's eyes widened. What? Xiao Wu killed 5 level 4 and 5 level 3 spiritual kings all by herself? She saved you? Song Yao and the others all nodded. She killed most of them. These are all her prizes. Feng Sun looked in the backpack and was astonished. Since when was Feng Wu so capable? Feng Sun soon got over the initial shock and he asked, where is she? Why isn't she with you? Song Yao hesitated. Feng Sun had a bad feeling and shouted, speak. Song Yao said, we asked her to come back with us, but she insisted on going to the central region, and we couldn't stop her. I gave her this map. What map? Feng Sun grew anxious. The central region. Why was she so bold? Song Yao said, we killed an enemy and found this map on him. It's like this. He had a good memory and soon drew a copy for Feng Sun. The tree looked identical to the one on the original map. Feng Sun didn't recognize it, but Xian Yi frowned. Isn't that the immortal spiritual tree? They had seen this tree when they accompanied Jun Linyuan to look for the immortal spiritual fruit. The thought of the fruit reminded Feng Sun of the ugly girl. She had fooled him over and over again. Did you give this map to her? Feng Sun glared at Song Yao. Song Yao didn't know what he did wrong, and Feng Sun's stare made him uneasy. Feng Sun wanted to slap Song Yao. However, he knew Feng Wu's decision had nothing to do with Song Yao. Feng Sun was grinding his teeth when somebody ran toward him. My lord, Elder Hellion needs to see you. It was Yuan Shui, Elder Hellien's favorite servant. Feng Sun wanted to shake his head when Yuan Shui added, It's about the immortal spiritual fruit. Elder Hellion has news on it, and it's urgent. Mr. Sakia is involved too. Feng Sun stared at Yuan Shui. What did you say? Yuan Shui nodded. Yes, Sakia came all the way here from the Dongsang capital city to take charge of the situation. Sakia. Feng Sun gritted his teeth. Of course, he knew who that was. Sakia was a ruthless man. He was the most relentless person. 3038 Catch that Feng Wu. Sakia was the crown prince's teacher and one of the highest-ranking officials in the Dongsang kingdom. The crown prince had 3 teachers. One gave him classes, one taught him how to fight, and one protected him. Right now, Sakia had all 3 titles, which was how talented the old man was. He knew everything that had ever happened in history and was so intelligent that he didn't seem human. Night Owl was very capable, but he was impulsive, violent, and reckless. Sakia was so smart and resourceful that he could make up for Night Owl's shortcomings. Together, they made an invincible team. Now that Night Owl had badly injured himself, Sakia had to come all the way here to take charge of things. Feng Sun had fallen for Sakia's ploys quite a few times. The only one who had ever outwitted Sakia was Jun Linyuan, but he was bedridden now. No. Jun Linyuan might have lost his cultivation ability, but his brain still worked. Shinny, go back now. Tell Elder Hellion and Boss Jun what happened. I'll find Xiao Wu and stop her. They went their separate ways after that. Feng Wu had no idea what was going on. Right now, she was lurking behind a team. There was a big team consisting of 50 people. The team leader was a giant with a full beard. He was quite capable. At her current level, Feng Wu couldn't tell his exact cultivation level. He had to be at least a level 5 spiritual king. The group he led consisted of 10 individual teams. In each team, the leader was a level 4 spiritual king, and the members were level 3 spiritual kings. Feng Wu hid in the thick canopy of a big tree nearby and listened to them. The team members were resting and eating. Our task is to catch the level 2 spiritual king alive. She has the divine phoenix blood. The giant's voice boomed like thunder. He looked around and said, I received information from a reliable source. She's here in the Dayless Woods. If 50 of us can't catch her, you can all go to hell. Lord Pan, that won't happen. Any one of us can catch her alive. How can this team fail that task? The other team leaders nodded. Lord Pan was pleased. We can ignore the other people of the Junwu Empire. Our top priority is the divine phoenix blood. Mr. Sakia says we must catch her. Feng Wu narrowed her eyes. Who was Mr. Sakia? Did Mr. Sakia ask specifically for Feng Wu? One of the level 4 spiritual kings sounded astonished. Mr. Sakia has never failed to catch a person he wants. That was the leader of Team 1. The leader of Team 2 chimed in. Mr. Sakia can always predict things. If he says we have to catch Feng Wu, she can't escape. I'm just curious. Is the divine phoenix blood that important? The leader of Team 3 said, I heard that the divine phoenix blood is a great tonic. 1 drop can change the bloodline of a good-for-nothing. Isn't that amazing? The leader of Team 4 said, That's incredible. When we catch her, can I poke her finger for a drop of her blood? 3039 Fong Sun. The leader of Team 5 said, "How can you be so stupid? Why should we poke a hole in her? We'll beat her until she bleeds, and we'll have as much blood as we want then." Lord Pan smacked him on the head. "Watch your mouth. How dare you defy Mr. Sakia? He'll chop off all your heads." The team leaders immediately stopped talking. They might still have a chance if they pleaded with the Crown Prince, but Mr. Sakia was the kind of person who would cut off your head while smiling. Feng Wu had a rough idea now. Mr. Sakia had to be extremely capable to frighten these people so much. Feng Wu was also worried about her divine phoenix blood. As it turned out, these people were after it. Now that Jun Linyuan wasn't watching over her, the Dongsang Kingdom began to come up with crazy plans. Catch her, bleed her, and use her as a tool for other people's cultivation? Feng Wu smirked. She would show these people who would be the ones to bleed. These Dongsang people were competing over how many Junwu people they could kill, and Feng Wu was furious. She would make these people's lives as hard as possible. Feng Wu wanted to keep going when somebody patted her head. She raised her head and looked into a pair of familiar eyes. Feng Wu was astonished. "Feng Sun." The young lord was filled with emotions. "You." Feng Wu was about to speak, but Feng Sun gave her a warning glance, gesturing at her to follow him. Feng Wu followed Feng Sun to a creek. They crouched down in a pit behind a giant rock and looked at each other. Feng Wu realized what she looked like now and remembered how the ugly girl had tricked Feng Sun. "The weather is so nice today." She tried to digress. Feng Sun cut her off. He studied her mask and didn't know what to say. Crossing his arms, he mocked her. "How brave of you. You're good enough to venture into the dayless woods on your own, huh? You're only a student. Are you prepared to go to the central region? I see you've helped some people. You must feel so good about yourself." Feng Wu felt a little guilty when she heard his mocking tone. It wasn't just because of what she had done in northern border city. She also felt awkward about what was happening now. After all, she was still a student. "I'm already a level 3 spiritual king. I've more than passed the requirement to graduate." Feng Wu looked up at Feng Sun but then immediately lowered her head. Feng Sun stared at her. "Do you think a level 3 spiritual king can get through the central region all by themselves?" Feng Wu said, Feng Sun had always been bubbly and gullible. Feng Wu had never seen him so serious before. Feng Sun jabbed her forehead with a finger. "Xian Yi has gone to see Elder Helian. This is a matter that has to involve the high-ranking officials of our empire. Your attempt will only get you killed." Feng Wu said, "No, I'm not." Feng Sun said, "Everywhere I went, I heard them hunting a girl in red, who has the divine phoenix blood." 3047 Beast Kings. Luckily, Feng Sun recognized her disguise, or he wouldn't have known who she was. "You're not the type of person to flaunt your bloodline. How did they find out?" Feng Sun frowned. The thought frustrated Feng Wu. "Zhuo Qingwan and Shan Jingfei." Feng Wu described to Feng Sun what she had heard. "They're working with the Dongsang Kingdom. You should pay more attention to them." Feng Sun frowned. "I can see why Zhuo Qingwan would do it, but who's Shan Jingfei?" Feng Wu then told Feng Sun about Shan Jingfei. Feng Sun stared at her. "Why are you always in trouble? You attract even more attention than Boss Jun." Feng Wu pouted. "He's the reason I'm in so much trouble in the first place." Feng Sun suddenly said, "Wait, what do you mean by, you should, just now? Aren't you coming back with me?" Of course not. No one knew when Elder Helian and the others would arrive. Moreover, the high-ranking officials had too many scruples. It would take them forever to make a decision. Feng Wu had already made up her mind. She would go off on her own. "No!" Feng Sun cut her off. "I won't have it. You're coming back with me." Feng Wu grinned, stuck out her tongue and sprinted off. Feng Sun wanted to go after her, but his feet were stuck to the ground. He couldn't believe what had happened. That girl. She set this trap while talking to him. She had done the same thing when she took the immortal spiritual fruit. Feng Sun was astonished. He decided to abandon his shoes. He cut open his boots, almost injuring himself in the process. However, she was long gone by the time he freed himself. Feng Sun ran after her, filled with anxiety. They were almost in the central region now. That region was so famous for a reason. There were 7 formidable beast kings in the Daelus Woods. No one knew how powerful they were. According to Jun Linyuan, they were somewhere between the spiritual overlord and spiritual saint stages. They could kill a junior spiritual king like Feng Wu with a flick of their finger. Feng Sun was worried sick. Seeing Feng Sun chasing her, Feng Wu headed for the central region without hesitation. The chase soon caught Lord Pan's attention. He was having his meal. Suddenly, he tossed his bowl aside and jumped to his feet. Something's happening. Spread out and see what's going on. Lord Pan gave the order. Feng Sun was scared to death when he saw Feng Wu enter the central region. OMG! She's going to die. She had already stepped into one of the Beast King's territories. Stop. Feng Wu, stop right there. Feng Sun could only speak to her in a hushed voice. He ran as fast as he could in bare feet. Feng Wu would never go back with him, so she ran as fast as she could as well. She wanted to lose Feng Sun and hide in a remote corner. 3041 Sacred Imperial Spider. Feng Wu wanted to change her disguise once she found a remote corner. That way, Feng Sun wouldn't know what she looked like. She didn't have much disguise paste left and could only change her disguise no more than twice. Just then Little Phoenix cried out, "Stop! I sense something dangerous." Feng Wu stopped abruptly. She could hear footsteps on fallen leaves. Before Little Phoenix could go on, Feng Sun caught up with her and grabbed her arm. "You naughty girl! I finally caught you. Do you know how dangerous this place is? There are 7 beast kings in the central region, and each of them is either a spiritual overlord or a spiritual saint. They can kill you with a single touch. Do you have a death wish? What'll happen to Boss Jun if you're dead? The Empire will be in chaos. Come back with me now." Feng Sun scolded Feng Wu. He dragged her in the opposite direction, but he was too late. A sinister voice came from behind them. "Where are you going? Stay." The eerie laughter gave Feng Wu and Feng Sun the creeps. It was so intimidating. They sensed a force more powerful than Elder Wu or even Elder Hellion. Feng Wu knew she was nowhere near capable enough to fight this creature. Feng Wu and Feng Sun exchanged looks. Feng Sun stared at her, fighting back his impulse to smack her. Feng Wu felt rather guilty. They raised their hands in the air and turned around. Behind them was a large, old tree, and on it was a spider as big as a grown man. It stared at them with cold eyes. Seeing them turn around, the golden spider stuck out its tongue. Feng Sun felt his heart race. It's the sacred imperial spider. He felt suffocated. Feng Wu didn't know what that meant, so she wasn't afraid and even asked him what it was in a whisper. Feng Sun said, "It's one of the 7 beast kings. It's a peak spiritual overlord or a junior spiritual saint. We're doomed." Haha. The sacred imperial spider found it ridiculous that the 2 humans were bold enough to talk to each other in front of it. Since when were humans so bold? The spider looked Feng Sun up and down and nodded in satisfaction. The teenager looked very yummy. It then turned to Feng Wu and found her rather ordinary. The sacred imperial spider was female. She began to wonder which human she should eat first. She looked back and forth between Feng Wu and Feng Sun. Feng Wu swallowed. "Why do I feel like it wants to eat us?" Feng Sun said, "You think? Even Elder Hellion isn't this spider's match. How about this? I'll hold onto its legs, and you run as fast as you can. Understand?" 3042 Eat you up. Feng Sun glared at Feng Wu. He knew he would probably die here, but his death would be worth it if Feng Wu could get away. Feng Wu shook her head. "No. We still have a chance." She had some poison. If the spider wanted to eat them, it would be killed by their dead bodies. Maybe they could strike a deal. Taking the poison was the last resort. If there was a chance to escape, of course, they would take it. Feng Wu said, "Let's run in opposite directions, and we'll know which one of us the spider wants to eat. If you don't run, I'll come back for you even if I get away." Feng Wu had never sounded so serious. Feng Sun had no choice but to agree with her. They only managed to take 3 steps in opposite directions. Whoosh! 2 golden spider webs flew in both directions. Feng Wu was caught by the spider web in midair, and so was Feng Sun. The harder she struggled, the tighter the web became. Feng Wu knew if she kept struggling, her limbs would be cut off. She was sure of it. She looked in Feng Sun's direction. Just like her, Feng Sun was wrapped into a cocoon, and that cocoon hung from the spider's fang on a string. That was to say, Feng Wu dangled on the spider's other fang. Feng Wu turned to Feng Sun. Feng Sun looked back at her. Both of them were speechless. They felt like 2 human meatloaves. Feng Wu tried to cut the string with Fallen Star Sword, but the web wouldn't budge. She couldn't free herself from the web. It was so hopeless. The spider studied the ugly girl. What's she thinking? She's as weak as an ant. Why does she think she can get away? The spider finally made the difficult decision. It would eat the ugly one first and keep the nice-looking one for later. It opened one side of its mouth, lifting the web with Feng Wu inside. She was soon between its teeth. She could see the spider's red tongue and smell its stench. "Are you really going to eat me? Would you like to make a deal?" Feng Wu tried to negotiate with it. The spider was amazed. Why did an ant think she could negotiate with her? Had she lost her mind? Feng Wu said, "I've been poisoned, and you'll die if you eat me. How about I find you more food? There are 50 healthy people on the other side." The spider glanced at Feng Wu. It understood her language. Feng Wu saw the expression in the spider's eyes. The disdain was quite apparent. "I mean it. I can lure them here and you can eat as much as you want." Feng Wu thought she had a chance. 3043 You idiot. However, the spider shook its head. Yes, that was what it did. Feng Wu wanted to continue, but the spider smirked. "Ant, what makes you think you can talk to me?" Feng Wu was astonished. She rarely faced a creature so powerful. Even when she did, they either ignored her or doted on her. None of them had ever sneered at her like this. Feng Wu still had some cards up her sleeves. For instance, she still had the phoenix pen from Master Linghu. She wasn't going to write inscriptions with it because her inscriptions wouldn't be powerful enough to affect the spider. She wanted to intimidate the spider with it. She was confident that the spider was scared of Master Linghu. That was why she had dared to come to the central region on her own. She had just put her hand in her pocket when something jumped out of her sleeve. "Hey! You stupid spider! Do you have a death wish?" What? Little Phoenix had come out. It was such a small bird that it looked tiny on Feng Wu's shoulder. Its feathers were standing up, and its face was scarlet red. It looked furious. Feng Wu's stomach lurched. What was the bird talking about? This was a sacred imperial spider that even Elder Hellion couldn't defeat. Feng Wu was trying to push Little Phoenix back into her sleeve when the spider halted. It narrowed its eyes and studied Little Phoenix. The bird felt both familiar and unfamiliar. The spider was confused. Phew. The longer the spider looked at Little Phoenix, the more uneasy it felt. An old memory seemed to be waking up. Feng Wu didn't dare move a muscle. She could feel the bird's claws trembling on her shoulder. At the same time, she could also feel the terrifying energy the bird emanated. Had Little Phoenix remembered something from its past? Had it dealt with the sacred imperial spider before? "Have you forgotten about me? I should have cut off more of your legs." Spiders should have 8 legs. When Feng Wu looked at the sacred imperial spider, she realized it only had 4. What? The sacred imperial spider wasn't certain at first. Although it had sensed the bird's energy, it had been so long that it couldn't relate this fist-sized bird to Boss Phoenix back then. The energy felt right, and what the bird said made sense. Even the fear was the same. All beasts had an instinctive fear of their superiors. It was an ingrained reaction. Why? The spider swallowed. Little Phoenix snorted. Have I jogged your memory? The sacred imperial spider said respectfully, Yes, of course. Thank you for sparing my life back then. Little Phoenix asked, Now, did you want to eat my little ones? 3044 Intimidation. Your little ones? The sacred imperial spider repeated anxiously. Little Phoenix raised its head and snorted. It didn't bother to answer that question. The sacred imperial spider said, I'm so sorry. I didn't know they were under your protection. The girl's so ugly, the spider thought to itself. Little Phoenix glowered. Be nice to each other for the next few days. I need to sleep. Don't wake me up. Yes, of course. The sacred imperial spider lowered its head and saluted the terrifying creature that had once turned the Dayless Woods upside down. Little Phoenix ran back to the storage space. Feng Wu was perplexed. So was Feng Sun. They looked at each other in astonishment. Feng Wu thought, since when was Little Phoenix so intimidating? Feng Sun thought, what did I see just then? They both looked at the sacred imperial spider in amazement. Phew! Little Phoenix sighed in relief once it was back in the storage space. Feng Wu then communicated with the bird in her mind. I didn't know you're so amazing. Are you that much stronger than the spider? Can you defeat all the creatures in the Dayless Woods? In your dreams. Little Phoenix laughed. What are you thinking? Feng Wu said, What? Little Phoenix said, Can't you see what I'm like now? Feng Wu said, Well. She knew the bird was about her level. As for the spider, it was somewhere between the spiritual overlord and spiritual saint stages. Elder Hellion was a spiritual overlord, and Jun Linyuan was a spiritual saint. That was to say, the spider's capability was between the two of them. Little Phoenix sighed. Feng Wu said, That's to say, you were... Little Phoenix said, I thought you would never get it. I was bluffing, but that spider is so powerful. It's no longer that stupid little creature anymore. Sooner or later, it'll realize what I've done. I used too much spiritual essence to scare it, and it'll take me a while to recover. You're on your own now. Feng Wu said, So, you were bluffing. Little Phoenix said, Of course I was. Creatures like that will back off when you show muscle. If I hadn't done that, that spider would have eaten you. Understood? And there's more. Little Phoenix sighed. You were a little too generous. Feng Wu looked perplexed. Little Phoenix said, Essence crystals are great stuff, and you can't find them anywhere else. Can you keep some essence crystals for yourself? If you don't want them, you can give them to the cub and me. Feng Wu was about to reply, when she heard a noise. Little Phoenix said, Go. You need to fool the spider now. Little Phoenix then went back to its cultivation. It needed to replenish its spiritual essence. Maybe it would need to do this trick again. 3045 Eat her. Feng Wu turned her attention to the outside world to find Feng Sun staring at the spider. The spider was also staring at him. Its fangs could produce venom, which was its most effective strategy. The spider licked its fangs and smirked. Boss Phoenix hadn't said it couldn't eat the boy. He's so pretty. I bet he's very yummy. The spider was so hungry that it opened its mouth and quickly approached Feng Sun. Feng Sun thought he would have a heart attack. He couldn't believe what was happening. Feng Wu returned to herself to find the spider trying to eat Feng Sun. She bellowed, Hey! What do you think you're doing? She rested her hands on her waist and glared at the spider. Feng Sun was speechless. He didn't know if he should cry or laugh. Feng Wu was only a spiritual king, but the spider was probably a peak spiritual saint. They were a whole stage apart. Feng Wu was so bold. The spider was confused by Feng Wu's reprimand. It stared at Feng Wu like it could eat her at any moment. If it attacked Feng Wu, she wouldn't stand a chance. Feng Sun was so nervous that he didn't dare make a sound, fearing that his breathing would affect Feng Wu. His forehead was covered with sweat. On the other hand, Feng Wu crossed her arms and stared at the spider. "Aren't you afraid of me?" the spider asked grimly. Feng Wu smirked. The spider said, "Say you're afraid of me, and I'll let you go." Feng Wu glanced at the spider. "Me? Afraid of you? What gave you that idea?" The spider studied Feng Wu. Feng Wu mimicked Jun Linyuan and radiated her energy. She remembered what Jun Linyuan looked like when he threatened other people. She stopped blinking and fixed her gaze on one spot. The spider thought, "The girl knows she has a patron. She's not afraid of me at all. Boss Phoenix must be watching over her from somewhere. If I do the wrong thing, Boss Phoenix will reappear and chop off the rest of my legs." The spider stiffened and stared at Feng Wu. The ordinary-looking girl brushed her hand over her face, and she suddenly looked completely different. She was stunning now. The spider had never seen anyone so pretty before. "I want to eat her." The spider drooled. To its surprise, the girl then removed her robe to reveal the pink dress underneath. The bright colors set off her alabaster skin, making her even more stunning. "She's so beautiful." That was all the spider could think of. It felt dizzy. Was it because it was hungry, or was the girl too pretty? "I want to eat her." 3046 Let's work together. The spider looked around for Boss Phoenix. Feng Wu smirked. "Do you have a death wish?" Feng Sun wanted to applaud her. She was such a good actress that he almost wanted to ask her for pointers. The spider was a little intimidated. It stared at Feng Wu. "What do you mean?" Feng Wu said, "I know I'm not your match. You can eat us any time you want." The spider's eyes lit up. Feng Wu smirked. "Let me remind you, Boss Phoenix put me in your care. If he comes back and can't find me, do you need your memory jogged again?" The memory was too painful. The spider gave Feng Wu a dirty look and turned to Feng Sun. Feng Sun felt a chill run down his spine. Luckily, his sister was as smart as she was pretty. She glared at the spider. "Don't you dare touch him. If you eat him, I'll tell Boss Phoenix what you did, and he'll cut off all your legs." Feng Sun was almost in tears. He was so glad that he had such a sister. The spider grew impatient. "Humans are so annoying. I can't eat anything." Feng Wu had 2 pets, so she had some idea of how to get through to the spider. "You don't seem to have many friends. Everybody avoids this area, and hardly anyone comes in. Have you eaten so many people that no one dares come here?" The spider glared at Feng Wu. Did she have to bring that up? "So what if I eat a lot? I hunt my own food. No one can tell me what to do." Seeing the spider's reaction, Feng Wu smiled. "Since we all follow Boss Phoenix's instructions, why don't we team up? We can help each other." Feng Wu knew that if she wanted to persuade the spider, she needed to come up with a solution. Now would be a good time. Before the spider could ask, Feng Wu said, "You're hungry, but I don't want you to eat my friend. That's our main disagreement. In that case, we should find another solution." She pointed in the other direction. "There are 50 people in all shapes and sizes out there. I'll lure them in, and you can have a feast. What do you think?" What a great idea. The spider almost said yes. However, it didn't want to seem so eager. The spider said arrogantly, "Are they your enemies? Do you want me to kill them for you?" Feng Wu was speechless. The spider was smarter than she expected. Feng Sun was anxious. The spider had discovered Xiao Wu's plan. Would it eat her? Feng Wu only smiled. "Why do you care? Will it affect your appetite?" It wouldn't, but the spider didn't want to help a human girl for no reason. 3047 Leader of Team 3. Feng Wu said calmly, "You've lived too comfortably for too long. You're so short-sighted. When Boss Phoenix comes back and learns that you've been getting along with me, maybe he'll teach you a thing or two, and you'll reach the next level." The spider said proudly, "I'm a peak spiritual overlord. Magical beasts are naturally a level higher than humans. You're only a spiritual king. You must envy me so much. Feng Wu deliberately said, Are you as good as you say? Will you be able to handle all those people if I lure them here? In the end, the spider was just a magical beast, and it reacted just like one. It was furious. Of course I will. I can eat 100 people like you all at once, said the spider. Feng Wu said, I hope you're as good as you say. She grabbed Feng Sun and ran away from the spider, shouting, We'll be back. But right at that moment, a gold spider web flew at Feng Sun. The next second, Feng Wu realized he was no longer beside her. Looking back, she saw Feng Sun dangling from the spider's fang again. She glared at the sacred imperial spider. The spider snorted. He's my hostage. Feng Wu couldn't believe a beast would know what a hostage was. Staring at the spider, Feng Wu realized it was serious. You can't eat him. Feng Wu warned the spider. The spider only smirked in an arrogant manner. Feng Wu was speechless. She immediately headed for her destination. The spider could speak the human language, but it was still a magical beast. It could turn hostile at any moment. She had to move fast. If she didn't lure the Dongsang teams here in time, the spider might eat Feng Sun. Feng Wu looked over her shoulder and gave Feng Sun a reassuring glance. Feng Sun wanted to cry, but he shook his head at Feng Wu. He was telling her to get out and not to return. Feng Wu gave him one last look before dashing off. There were 7 beast kings in the central region, and the sacred imperial spider was only one of them. Its territory was only a medium-sized one. Maybe it had eaten too many people. The Dongsang assassins hardly ever came here. Until Feng Wu heard a noise. It was those Dongsang assassins sent by Lord Pan. She had found her target. She then deliberately made a noise. The Dongsang assassins had seen 2 people running into the woods and were looking for them when they heard the noise. They all looked up. The team closest to Feng Wu was Lord Pan's Team 3. She recognized the team leader. Feng Wu stood on a tree. When she looked down, her eyes met the team leaders. 3048 Intercept. What a pretty girl. Is she a mountain fairy? The team leader was stunned when he first saw Feng Wu, but somebody next to him cried out, She's wearing a red dress. A red dress. Those words sounded like a thunderclap in the team leader's ears. A stunning girl in a red dress. Feng Wu, show me that portrait. The team member who had alerted him was called Yamaya. He immediately took out a portrait with trembling hands. He knew he had made a major discovery. Feng Wu didn't know what to say. These assassins were much slower than she expected. She even had to wait for them to respond. It's her. The team leader glanced at the portrait and grew excited. Catch her. She has the divine phoenix blood. She's Feng Wu. The divine phoenix blood? One mouthful of it can make me so much more powerful. It can make me immortal. Catch her. The assassins were so greedy that they seemed to have lost their minds. Feng Wu pretended to be frightened. She screamed and dashed off. Don't let her get away. Catch her. My divine phoenix blood. Stop her. Tell everybody she's here. She's going into the sacred imperial spider's territory. What should we do? Why are you even asking? The spider is dangerous, but the divine phoenix blood is our top priority. We must catch her. If the spider gets her first, even Mr. Sakia can't get her out. Move. They ran after Feng Wu, regardless of where they were headed. Feng Wu looked over her shoulder. When there was enough temptation, even God wouldn't be able to keep his head on straight, let alone these greedy humans. Before long, another team arrived. What's going on? Why are you all yelling? It's Feng Wu. She's going into the sacred imperial spider's territory. We must intercept her. What? The divine phoenix blood? Catch her. These were members of Team 2. One team chased Feng Wu from behind while the other tried to flank her. The spider looked at Feng Sun with cold eyes. Feng Sun dangled at the corner of the spider's mouth and could feel its patience running thin. He thought, maybe I'll die here. But right at that moment, he heard noise coming toward him. Feng Sun could see well from where he was hanging. His eyes widened. Wearing her red dress, Feng Wu was moving nimbly in the woods. Behind her was a group of people. They held all kinds of weapons and were shouting excitedly. Feng Wu would look over her shoulder and even stop to wait for them every now and then. Soon she was in front of the spider. 3049 badges. Your takeaway is here. Enjoy your meal. Feng Wu ran behind the sacred imperial spider after that. The spider turned around and looked at the girl in astonishment. What was so special about her? Why were all these people chasing her? The spider had made some baiting sounds before when it was extremely hungry, but no one took the bait. It had to leave its territory to hunt for food. That was quite humiliating. As a result, it would simply go to sleep when it was hungry. When it woke up, the hunger would be gone. The spider's mind wandered off, and Feng Wu had to urge it. Your web. Use your web. That was right. The spider realized what it could do. These people had willingly walked into its home. The spider didn't use a small web like it had with Feng Wu and Feng Sun. A giant golden web fell from above. It was over 100 meters wide. The web made a whooshing sound as it fell. Shit! It's the sacred imperial spider. The spider web. Run! When they had to choose between their lives and the divine phoenix blood, they all chose the former, but it was too late. The spider web caught them all. The two teams had 10 people in total. The harder they struggled, the tighter the web became, and the strings cut into their flesh. The two team leaders knew better, so they shouted at their people to calm down. But it was too late. It had been a while since the spider ate, and the smell of human flesh was so tempting. Feng Wu didn't know the spider was so big. 3050 scavenger. Feng Wu's plan killed over half of the best junior spiritual kings of the Dongsang Kingdom. Of course, Mr. Sakia didn't know that yet, nor did Lord Pan. After sending out his men, Lord Pan was lying comfortably on a tree branch and taking a nap in the sunlight. He couldn't imagine a scenario where 50 assassins failed to catch one girl. He slept soundly, not worrying about anything. Feng Wu picked up all the badges that the spider had spat out. The spider couldn't believe how poor the girl was. It glanced at Feng Wu. Why do you want all that rubbish? Are you a scavenger? Rubbish. Feng Wu stared at the spider in amazement. She could exchange these badges for a military ranking. She hadn't graduated yet. Maybe she could become a lieutenant colonel when she handed in these badges. That would be great. Feng Wu retorted as she picked up the badges. Rubbish? This is great stuff. I can exchange them for a military ranking. The spider snorted. Feng Sun was astonished as he watched Feng Wu interact with the spider as if the latter were an ordinary person. Feng Sun's eyes had widened when Feng Wu lured in the first batch of Dongsang assassins. However, she lured in even more after that. Therefore, Feng Sun didn't stop being astonished. He watched as the spider killed all 50 assassins. He calculated the badges in his head. If those people were all majors, each badge would be worth 600 points. There were 50 badges here. That was... Feng Sun sucked in his breath. That was 30,000 points. Feng Sun was so shocked that it took him a while to remember how the points worked. To become a major, one had to defeat 10 enemies of their own level, which was equivalent to 6,000 points. There were more than enough here. Feng Wu had long passed that threshold. How many points did a lieutenant colonel need? 36,000. Yes. 6,000 more points and she would be a lieutenant colonel. Holy crap. Feng Sun was so shocked that he wanted to cry. The girl was even chatting with the spider as if they were neighbors. Had the girl forgotten that she was only a junior spiritual king? Feng Wu didn't like the spider's tone. She said, "Why are you laughing at me? I should be laughing at you. How can you eat so much? The spider was so full that it lay on its side. Once its stomach was full, it didn't seem so sinister anymore. It said, I haven't been this full for so many years. Since you're a scavenger, there you go. The spider pointed at a spot. 3051 Laughter. With a full stomach, the spider seemed almost amiable. It pointed at a spot, but Feng Wu didn't think much of it. The more indifferent she was, the more insistent the spider became. It's right over there, just past that big tree. The spider lightly kicked Feng Wu in the butt. Don't be so lazy. Go. Feng Wu rolled her eyes at the spider. Who is lazy here? She decided not to argue with a peak spiritual overlord. Wow. Feng Wu's eyes suddenly lit up. The spider must have eaten quite a lot of people over the years, and they must all have badges. The idea excited Feng Wu, and she went to fetch Feng Sun. Badges. It must be badges. Feng Wu said affirmatively. We hit the jackpot. Feng Sun eyed her suspiciously. Are you sure? Why would that spider be so helpful? Feng Wu said, because we're buddies now. Feng Sun rolled his eyes and knocked her on the head. Wake up. That's a peak spiritual overlord. What are you? Buddies? Do you know if it's male or female? He almost left a red mark on Feng Wu's forehead. Feng Wu wouldn't take it. She would show Feng Sun she was right. They reached a spot to find a pit in the ground. To call it a pit was an understatement. It was as large as a football field. What was that smell? I think that's the spider's feces, said Feng Sun. Feng Wu couldn't believe it. Seriously? Where were the badges? She then heard a burst of laughter. Turning around, Feng Wu saw the spider cracking up. It laughed so hard that the woods shook. One would think it was an earthquake. Seeing the look on Feng Wu's face, it laughed even louder. Blue veins popped on Feng Wu's forehead. That spider! It was making fun of her. She ran back to its side and kicked it from behind. How dare you make fun of me? Damn you! The spider laughed so hard that its voice turned hoarse. Feng Sun didn't react as fast as Feng Wu. By the time he knew what had happened, Feng Wu was kicking the spider. Feng Sun's eyes popped. Did that girl have a death wish? What was she doing? To his disbelief, the man-eating spider was laughing so hard that it ignored what Feng Wu was doing. Feng Sun felt the Beast King wasn't anything like he had been taught before. Feng Wu kicked the spider again. Stop laughing. By the time the spider stopped, it was already in tears. 3052 Good job. You're so funny. Here's a reward for you. The spider then pointed at another spot 100 m behind it. Feng Wu said, Do you think you can fool me again? The spider asked, Are you going or not? Feng Wu said, Fine, I'll take a look. She then asked Feng Sun, Are you coming? Feng Sun was tired of all the walking around. He sat down on a stump and waved Feng Wu off. The spider was surprised again by how unpredictable Feng Wu was. All the humans it had met were stiff and dull. None of them were as lively as this girl. She was full of energy and very adorable. The spider watched Feng Wu walk away before turning to Feng Sun. The kindness was gone, and the greed was back. It suddenly felt like it could have another snack. Feng Sun felt a chill run down his spine. My dear sister, I'm coming. He ran as fast as his legs could carry him. He almost looked like an afterimage. The next second he was by Feng Wu's side. Feng Wu was crouching by the edge of a pit, looking down with sparkling eyes. Our spider is so lovely. There are so many badges. Feng Wu didn't look back when she spoke to Feng Sun. Feng Sun was still covered in cold sweat. Lovely? Feng Sun shouted, but he immediately changed his tone. I suppose it's quite lovely. Feng Wu pointed at the pit the size of a basketball court. Do you see those bones? Beneath them are the badges. Feng Sun said, That's right. Feng Wu nudged him. Go get them. Feng Sun asked, Why me? Feng Wu feigned a sad tone. Well, if you want to see a pretty girl rummaging through a pile of bones, I guess I can go. I'll do it. Feng Sun cut her off. He was filled with guilt. Aren't I a good brother? A good brother would never let his sister do such a thing. You're the best brother in the world. Feng Wu used her most adorable voice. Feng Sun scratched his head and felt like the happiest man. After that, the young lord rolled up his trousers and crawled around in the pile of bones. Feng Wu stayed on the surface and cheered for him. You're the best. Good job. This is great. Brother. The spider then joined them and looked at her in surprise. Feng Wu wanted to keep the partnership running. Are you still hungry? The spider still felt full. Feng Wu tried to provoke it. Don't tell me you're full. You told me you could eat 100 people. Were you lying to me? The spider said, No, I wasn't. I can eat 100 people. 3053 Here you go. Feng Wu smiled at the spider. The spider glanced at Feng Wu. I mean it. To prove itself, the spider said, If you don't believe me, you can bring more people here, and I'll eat them. Feng Wu rubbed her nose. All right, I'll find some more people, but it'll take time. I heard there was a fire in the center of the woods, and a lot of people have gathered there. You mean Peacock's territory, don't you? The spider smirked. That peacock isn't the most friendly in the forest. If you upset it, you're dead. Feng Wu said, Boss Phoenix will protect me. Boss Phoenix pulled off all its feathers, and it has been trying to take revenge ever since. It's not as nice as me. Bring up Boss Phoenix's name, and that bird will eat you alive. Feng Wu burst into a cold sweat. She asked Little Phoenix in her head, and Little Phoenix searched its memory before telling Feng Wu in an uncertain tone, I don't remember anything from that far back. If my memory serves me right, I did do something like that to a fierce little peacock. I think I roasted it over a volcano too. Feng Wu was astonished. Over a volcano? Was that supposed to be a barbecue? Feng Wu was shocked. How many magical beasts had this bird messed with? Feng Wu sighed inwardly and turned to the spider. Can the people of the Dongsang Kingdom move freely in its territory? The spider found it an idiotic question. Feng Wu gave it an innocent look. Now that the spider knew Feng Wu a little bit better, it couldn't send Feng Wu to her death. The people over there worship that peacock. They only need to ask for permission to go in. Feng Wu asked, Do my people not worship it? The spider sighed. You don't even have a semi-divine medicine refiner. What can you offer us in worship? A semi-divine medicine refiner. Feng Wu's eyes lit up. Can I bribe a beast king with the medicine created by a semi-divine medicine refiner? The spider said proudly, Not necessarily. We only accept certain types of pills. Why do you ask? You're just a girl. The spider had complicated feelings about Feng Wu, finding her rather refreshing but also wanting to eat her. When those people said she had the divine phoenix blood, the spider had to fight hard to suppress the urge to eat her. Feng Wu glanced at the spider. You want to eat me, don't you? The spider had a hard time suppressing its instinct. If Little Phoenix hadn't threatened the spider, it might have done whatever it wanted. The spider stared at Feng Wu, the look in its eyes becoming fierce. Feng Sun felt a chill run down his spine. He ran to Feng Wu's side and shielded her with his own body. Eat me. Leave her alone. Feng Wu patted him to calm him down. Feng Sun said, Quiet. The look in the spider's eyes became sinister. Feng Wu took out her little cauldron. 3054 Immortal Spiritual Fruit, wait for me. Feng Wu rather liked this portable cauldron. She started making some pills in front of the spider. The sacred imperial spider didn't know what Feng Wu was doing at first and only sneered at her. The girl wasn't very capable, and Boss Phoenix couldn't protect her forever. Yes, she was lovely, but that was negligible compared with the divine phoenix blood. When Feng Wu took out the mini cauldron, the spider didn't say anything. Feng Wu ignored the spider and started making her pills. She alone would decide what her value was. The spider was astonished when a semi-divine golden pill appeared in the cauldron. You! It stared at Feng Wu. She was only a girl. By the standard of magical beasts, she was just a cub. However, she had just made such a pill. The spider didn't want to accept it, but it all happened right in front of its eyes. It had to be blind to deny what had happened. The sacred imperial spider finally understood why the girl was so confident in herself. She was a semi-divine medicine refiner, which was very rare in human society. The spider finally respected Feng Wu for what she was rather than seeing her as a pet. You're good. The sacred imperial spider kept its gaze on Feng Wu and spoke in a solemn tone. Feng Wu threw the pill at the spider. Shall we talk about our partnership now? Of course, the spider wouldn't say no. Apart from Feng Sun, nobody knew what their agreement was. Feng Wu soon left, leaving Feng Sun behind. The spider ignored him and started cultivating. Before Feng Wu left, the sacred imperial spider gave her a golden spider, which represented the sacred imperial spider. The other 6 beast kings would respect that golden spider. As long as Feng Wu didn't offend them, they wouldn't attack her. Feng Wu carefully put the golden spider in her pocket and put on a disguise. Before long, an ordinary-looking Dongsang girl with a dull face and thin frame appeared in the woods. Feng Wu came out of the woods to discover in astonishment that Lord Pan was still sleeping. He was snoring loudly. Feng Wu had 3 choices. She could sneak up on him and kill him right now. Or she could ask the sacred imperial spider to kill him. The third option was to avoid him and head for the Peacock King's territory. Feng Wu made the decision after pondering for a minute. Lord Pan was more capable than any of those Dongsang assassins. She wasn't sure she could kill the man without disturbing him. Getting the spider here in time would be a problem, too. Therefore, Feng Wu sprinkled something when she walked past Lord Pan. She then headed for the center of the woods without waking up the man. Immortal spiritual fruit, wait for me. The sacred imperial spider was right. With the golden spider on her, all the beast kings let her through their territories without giving her any trouble. The sacred imperial spider had described to her how the central region was divided into 7 areas and had shown her where they were. 3055 Similarity. If Feng Wu hadn't demonstrated her strength as a semi-divine medicine refiner, the spider would never have treated her as an equal. Feng Wu suddenly realized why this place seemed familiar. It looked a lot like the city she used to reside in her previous life. The central area was the city center, and the 7 beast kings' territories were 7 districts around it. When the spider asked her if she had remembered the map, she immediately said yes. The spider thought she was bragging, but she really remembered it. The layout was very similar to the city in her previous life. She just needed to travel along the borders of the districts, and she wouldn't offend those beast kings. She was right. Nothing happened during her trip, and she reached the Peacock King's territory without incident. The Peacock King knew somebody had entered its territory. However, the Dongsang Kingdom worshipped the Peacock King, and it could live with the Dongsang people walking on its land. Moreover, Feng Wu was giving off the energy of a Dongsang assassin, so the Peacock King ignored her. It only turned around and went back to sleep. The Peacock King snored, which wasn't graceful at all. Feng Wu sensed its intimidating energy, but she only smiled. She had already figured out a way to handle the Peacock King. The only thing she needed to take care of was that legendary Mr. Sakia. She would run into Dongsang assassins every now and then, but she looked like an assassin, just like them, so they didn't pay her much attention. Moreover, they usually covered their faces with masks, which made them even more unrecognizable. They could only tell one another by the energy they gave off. All Dongsang people had that unique energy, and a person from the Junwo Empire couldn't fake it. Because of that, they weren't worried about spies. The Dongsang Kingdom was quite relaxed in that aspect. However, they shouldn't have been too confident about that since Feng Wu was an exception. After entering the Peacock King's territory, she noticed much fewer assassins. The immortal spiritual fruit tree grew somewhere near the crater of the volcano, so Feng Wu slowed down when she was close enough. Mr. Sakia could be nearby. She heard noise up ahead, and she concealed her energy. Hiding in the bushes, she looked through a gap in the leaves. A fire burnt violently on a cliff nearby. Even the sky seemed to be burning. The color was magnificent. Dense energy filled the air. Feng Wu could sense that the spiritual essence was much denser here. On the contrary, the air was much thinner. To cultivate here, she would need to survive first. Cultivation came later. If she could live, it would only take her half the time to cultivate. Feng Wu already felt lightheaded after crouching here for a while. She realized sadly that this place wasn't suitable for cultivators below the spiritual overlord stage. Logo 3056 Bujingyu. Feng Wu concentrated on the surroundings and looked down the slope. There was a valley at the foot of the cliff. The sun was setting, but Feng Wu could still see what was down there. She was amazed. There was a house near the crater of the volcano. It wasn't an ordinary courtyard with all four walls. Rather, it was a cottage. In front of the cottage was a lawn, which had been mowed. The grass seemed so soft. A table had been set, and someone was making tea on a small stove. The man had long hair and was reading in a chair. He was an elegant and refined middle-aged man. The book fitted perfectly in his hands. Mr. Sakia. That name came to Feng Wu's mind. Her breathing quickened a little and Mr. Sakia immediately looked in her direction. Luckily, Feng Wu moved away from that spot a second ago and slowed down her breathing again. Mr. Sakia returned to his book. Feng Wu quietly left the bushes. She only stopped holding her breath when she was over 1,000 meters away from Mr. Sakia. Her forehead was covered in sweat. She didn't know how sharp Mr. Sakia was, but his cultivation alone already posed a great threat. He was definitely more advanced than a spiritual king. He was probably a spiritual overlord. Feng Wu wanted to cry. She had worked so hard to become a spiritual king, but when she came to Peace Grassland, she found this place overrun with spiritual overlords. She crouched in the bushes, rubbed her chin, and racked her brain. Only a disorganized person would think improvising was a good idea. Feng Wu always had a plan. She saw the tree. Mr. Sakia almost spotted her, not because she had been excited to see him. It was because she had seen the tree. The tree weren't hidden. It was right there in plain sight. Mr. Sakia was sitting by it. The Dongsang Kingdom had actually built a house next to it. Mr. Sakia was sitting there and waiting for the immortal spiritual fruit to ripen. Feng Wu saw a translucent fruit already dangling over Mr. Sakia's head. It was so eye-catching. It was right there. Feng Wu wished she could grab the fruit and run, but she couldn't do that. She couldn't handle Mr. Sakia, let alone all the assassins nearby. Feng Wu rubbed her nose as she tried to come up with a plan. Just then she heard a voice. Miss Mu Yen, do you think the divine phoenix blood is real? It was a man's voice. Mu Yen? Feng Wu recognized that name. She remembered that name because she recalled the gossip about Mu Yen, who seemed to have slept with the crown prince of the Dongsang Kingdom. Feng Wu remained silent. Mu Yen snorted. The divine phoenix blood? Bu Jingyu, since when did you become so stupid? 3057 Action. Bu Jingyu didn't know what to say. He flushed. But according to the information I received, Feng Wu has the divine phoenix blood. My master seems to believe it. Feng Wu thought, if he can move freely in this area, he can't be an ordinary soldier. Mu Yen was an important figure in the Dongsang Kingdom. Who was Bu Jingyu's master? Could it be? That middle-aged man popped into Feng Wu's mind, and she narrowed her eyes. She was right. Mu Yen cast a stern look at Bu Jingyu. Are you using your master to intimidate me? Bu Jingyu said, Of course not. Mu Yen said, Mr. Sakia is your master, not your father. He won't like you flaunting his power like this. If he gets angry, he'll kick you out. You won't be the first. Bu Jingyu seemed scared. My master is the best. He's the cleverest man in the world. Mu Yan snorted. Not necessarily. Bu Jingyu was surprised. Do you mean that there is someone smarter than my master? Mu Yan said, yes, of course. Bu Jingyu asked, who? He didn't mention Night Owl, apparently already convinced that the Crown Prince wasn't as wise as Sakiya. Mu Yan pointed in the direction of the fortress. He's our enemy. Bu Jingyu asked, do you mean that Crown Prince? Feng Wu kept very still at the mention of Jun Linyuan. She wrapped her arms around her knees and hid in the tall grass. The two people had no idea she was there. They didn't use Jun Linyuan's name and only referred to him as that Crown Prince. That was how much Jun Linyuan intimidated them. The conversation continued, so Feng Wu sat down in the grass. Mu Yan nodded, and her expression softened. Yes, I'm talking about him. He's so intelligent and resourceful that even Mr. Sakiya isn't his match. That's impossible. Bu Jingyu worshipped his master and would never tolerate such a statement. Mu Yan smirked. I know Mr. Sakiya is far-sighted and prudent, but I saw with my own eyes how that Crown Prince defeated him. You weren't around back then. That's why you know nothing about it. Bu Jingyu puffed out his cheeks, displeased. Mu Yan patted him on the head. You're only 12, and your master took you out of that place. No one's stopping you from worshipping him. I know Mr. Sakiya is extremely intelligent, but this world is full of capable people. Don't get angry though. That Crown Prince won't live for much longer. Mu Yan's voice was filled with sorrow. Of course he'll die. When our Crown Prince takes the pill made from the immortal spiritual fruit, he'll wake up and that Crown Prince will be in a coma forever. After that, our Crown Prince will destroy their fortress. Bu Jingyu spoke excitedly. Feng Wu narrowed her eyes. In a coma forever. Destroy the fortress. That boy was dreaming. 3058 into the grass. He looked into a girl's bright eyes. Before he could make a sound, Feng Wu raised her hand. She jabbed a few of his acupoints, and he could neither speak nor move. Bu Jingyu glared at Feng Wu, but she only grinned. You're very upset, aren't you? The boy grunted and tried to struggle. Feng Wu patted him on the shoulder. You don't need to know who I am, and I'm not letting you go either. Bu Jingyu thought, my master will kill you. Feng Wu chuckled. I don't think your master can kill me. Enough with the chit-chat. Answer my questions. Tell me your name, your identity, everything. Bu Jingyu stared at her. Feng Wu sighed. I don't have much truth serum left. Why are you forcing me to use it? Truth serum. Bu Jingyu frowned, but Feng Wu had already poured the truth serum down his throat. Bu Jingyu tried to resist, but Feng Wu wouldn't let him. Before feeding the truth serum to him, Feng Wu removed his robe and put it aside. Bu Jingyu didn't know what Feng Wu was doing, but he had a very bad feeling. She was asking about his personal information and had removed his robe. What did she want to do? He didn't want to tell her anything, but the serum was too potent, and he eventually told her everything she wanted to know. Feng Wu now had a complete profile of the boy. She needed it for her roleplay. 3059 Not stealing. It had never taken her so much effort before to pretend to be somebody else, but this time, her opponent was Mr. Sakiya, who was supposedly the cleverest man in the Dongsang Kingdom. She couldn't afford to make any mistakes, or she would be doomed. These woods were filled with Dongsang assassins. If her cover was blown, she could only imagine how miserable her death would be. Feng Wu made Bu Jingyu tell her all his habits and how he interacted with Mr. Sakiya. Bu Jingyu panicked when he saw Feng Wu put on his robe. What are you doing? Bu Jingyu's voice shook. Feng Wu smiled at him. What do you think? She quickly put on her mask in front of him. Because she had to copy Bu Jingyu's expressions to a T, she was more careful than ever. She deliberately agitated Bu Jingyu so that she could see how Bu Jingyu looked when he was shocked, pleased or in pain. She had to nail all the nuances. The devil was in the details. Meanwhile, Bu Jingyu went through hell. He thought he would have a nervous breakdown. The girl made him feel like in heaven one moment and in hell the next. The emotional roller coaster almost drove him insane. While Bu Jingyu was in agony, Feng Wu suddenly turned away from him. When she turned back to face Bu Jingyu, she looked exactly like him. She stared at Bu Jingyu and asked in astonishment, "Who are you? What do you want?" Bu Jingyu was shocked. Holy crap! Her tone and expression were identical to his when he was shocked. Even Bu Jingyu felt like he was looking at himself. Feng Wu wasn't very tall, but Bu Jingyu was only a slim 12-year-old boy. When she wore his robe, Feng Wu looked just like him from behind. Bu Jingyu burst into tears. Feng Wu patted him on the head and grinned. "Be a good boy and stay here. I'll set you free when I finish my task." Bu Jingyu said, "Will you set me free?" Feng Wu nodded. "Of course." Bu Jingyu asked, "What do you want?" Feng Wu was amazed. "Haven't you already guessed?" Bu Jingyu was confused before terror filled his eyes. He said, "Don't tell me." Feng Wu nodded. "No, that's impossible." Bu Jingyu shook his head repeatedly. "My master is guarding the fruit. You can't steal it. You're dreaming." Feng Wu chuckled. "Steal? It belongs to the person who can take it, understand?" Bu Jingyu wanted to argue with Feng Wu. Feng Wu said, "Don't get so excited. Go to sleep now, and everything will be over when you wake up." She waved her hand, and the teenager fainted. 3060 The most painful choice. Feng Wu hid him in a cave hidden behind tall grass. Would Bu Jingyu ever wake up? Feng Wu cleared her throat, straightened her clothes, and headed for the cottage. Bu Jingyu was about the same age as Feng Xiaoqi, and Feng Wu knew exactly how to mimic a boy of that age. She looked just like him. She had a plan. She would enter the cottage first to see the situation inside. Once she built up her confidence, she would go see Mr. Sakiya. Sakiya was too observant and sharp. He might catch her tiniest mistake. Although the Dongsang kingdom thought no one could mimic their energy, what if there was an exception? Feng Wu stuck to the other end of the yard to avoid Mr. Sakiya. However, ahem. Mr. Sakiya's gaze was still on the book, but he suddenly cleared his throat. Well, she couldn't pretend she hadn't heard that. Mu Yan found it rather strange. She told Feng Wu, "Your master is summoning you." Feng Wu was speechless. She couldn't ignore him. Luckily, the more complicated the situation was, the calmer she became. She also needed to behave like Bu Jingyu. According to Bu Jingyu, he was quite a naughty boy and skipped school a lot. His master often disciplined him for that. Sakiya had told him to memorize a text, but Bu Jingyu said he was going out for some fresh air. Bu Jingyu swore to himself that he would never do such a thing again. He didn't know if he would get a second chance. Feng Wu stopped when she was a meter away from Sakiya, and her slim shoulders trembled a little. She stole a glance at Sakiya but immediately lowered her head, fearing that he might see through her cover. All that information came from Bu Jingyu. Feng Wu's imitation was so precise that Sakiya didn't realize that she wasn't his student. Sakiya kept his gaze on the book while he spoke to his student. "Where were you?" He didn't sound angry, but his tone was still intimidating. Feng Wu cringed. "I got tired when I was memorizing the text, so I went for a walk." It wasn't the first time that his student had snuck off. Sakiya pinched the bridge of his nose. If his student didn't come from a special background, he wouldn't cut him so much slack. Sakiya finally put down the book and stared at his young student. "You got tired?" Feng Wu had been watching the immortal spiritual fruit above Sakiya's head. It was so tempting. Immortal spiritual fruit. Her immortal spiritual fruit. She just wanted to grab it and run. She did some calculations and realized she could never pull it off. She took a deep breath and fought back the urge. Wait. Apart from the one dangling over Sakiya's head, There was another one in the thick canopy. 2 immortal spiritual fruits. Feng Wu's eyes lit up. She was thrilled. She had been wondering about something until now. Jun Linyuan needed the immortal spiritual fruit to activate his bloodline, but Bao Er also needed it urgently. It was the hardest choice to make. 3061 2 immortal spiritual fruits. Feng Wu had been ignoring that fact. However, if she could take both immortal spiritual fruits, she wouldn't need to make that difficult choice. Feng Wu frowned when she realized that the immortal spiritual fruits wouldn't ripen at the same time. The one above Sakia's head was about ripe, but the one hidden in the leaves still needed a while. That made things much trickier. Feng Wu was racking her brain, but Sakia frowned. He was never pleased with this student, who was dumb, lazy, and liked to wander off. The boy had too many flaws. Seeing that his student's mind had wandered off again, Sakia frowned. He put the book on the table and glanced at Feng Wu. Feng Wu was immediately wrapped in the energy of this capable cultivator. Feng Wu drew in her breath. She didn't know if Sakia was knowledgeable enough to teach the Crown Prince, but she was certain that he was capable enough to train the Crown Prince in his cultivation. This capability. It was terrifying. Sakia looked at his student in disappointment and shook his head. He wanted to send the boy away, but he changed his mind when he recalled the boy's background. He only glanced at his student. If memorizing the text gave you a headache, that means you put your heart into it. Recite on morals for me, Mr. Sakia kept his sharp gaze on Feng Wu. He had already anticipated what would happen. The boy wouldn't remember anything from that book. On morals, is it? Feng Wu looked at Sakia. Sakia read his book and wouldn't talk to her. Feng Wu was speechless. A few people stood in the distance, and one of them was Mu Yen. As a supreme-level medicine refiner, Mu Yen knew how to pick and preserve the immortal spiritual fruit, which was why she was here. A general was also among those people. He was General Gucci, one of Sakia's capable subordinates. Lord Pan, who was still sleeping, was General Gucci's subordinate. The third person was the steward of this team, and he was in charge of taking care of their daily necessities. They looked in Sakia's direction when they heard the master testing his student. Mu Yen sighed. Bu Jingyu is finished. General Gucci asked, hasn't he memorized that text? Mu Yen said, no, he didn't even try. He snuck off again. When I found him, he was watching some ants in the grass. Gucci frowned. Mr. Sakia's patience is running out. Mu Yen nodded. I think the boy will be on his way soon. Gucci and Mu Yen smiled wryly at each other. However, it is quite meaningless to speculate upon unspoken thoughts. Feng Wu put her hands behind her back and started reciting the text. On morals was such an easy piece for her, an avid reader. She hesitated when she recalled what Bu Jingyu was like. She observed Sakia's expression as she recited the lines. 3062 Master and Student. She sighed inwardly and went on reciting. Colors make a person blind. Music makes a person deaf. She kept going, and Sakia closed his eyes at some point, listening to her recitation with great ease. The three people's eyes widened in surprise. That boy couldn't remember anything, but now he had memorized on morals. He didn't pause or hesitate. He could only recite the first 3 chapters the day before, and Sakia threw the book in his face. The way of heaven is to do benefit and do no harm. Finally, Feng Wu recited the entire On Morals without making a mistake. She studied Sakia's expression, and the man seemed to have stiffened a little. It was as if he was trying to control his facial expression. She wondered if she was wrong. Feng Wu looked around and happened to meet Mu Yan's gaze. She saw the astonishment on Mu Yan's face. Feng Wu became nervous. Had she done too well? Master? Feng Wu stammered as if she didn't know what to do. Sakia finally opened his eyes. His expression remained unperturbed, but deep down he was shaken to the core. His student had recited 5,000 words without making a single mistake. Only one day before, that was why he said he needed to take a walk. Memorizing so many words must have given him a headache. Sakia looked at his student, and his expression softened. He waved at Feng Wu. "Come over here." Sakia's long white robe reached the ground. In the moonlight, he almost looked like a celestial being from another realm. Feng Wu looked like the celestial being's servant. She had to convince herself that she was Bu Jingyu. She knew Sakia had the sharpest eyes, and it was very hard to fool him. She could only convince him if she became a second Bu Jingyu. If she failed, she would die. 3063 An old acquaintance. Sakia asked Feng Wu to move closer. Of course, Feng Wu couldn't say no, although moving closer meant her cover was more likely to be blown. Feng Wu slowly walked to Sakia's side. Sakia rubbed her head. Not bad. Feng Wu was speechless. What was happening? Didn't Bu Jingyu say his master was very strict with him? According to the boy, his master never said anything nice to him and would either scold him or give him more homework. However, Sakia was so kind to her. Feng Wu was perplexed. Seeing how his student was surprised by this sudden expression of favor, Sakia was hit by a pang of guilt. He wondered if he had been too strict with his student. He had only softened his tone a little, and the boy was so touched. Sakia chastised himself and waved at Feng Wu. Off you go. Enjoy your night off. My night off. Feng Wu was astonished once more. Bu Jingyu had told her that his master never gave him any free time. That boy lied to her. She would kill him when she could. She was glad she could get away from Sakia for a while because that man was too clever. Feng Wu happily ran into one of the cottages, and Mu Yen was waiting for her there. There were over a dozen cottages, and Sakia occupied the three in the middle. Mu Yen and Gucci took up the other cottages. As for the other assassins, they could sleep in the trees at night. Building too many houses would enrage the Peacock King. This place belonged to that bird. Mu Yen dragged Feng Wu to the side as soon as she went inside. She stared at Feng Wu in amazement. Bu Jingyu, that was amazing. How did you memorize all those things? How would the real Bu Jingyu react? Feng Wu had talked to the boy and knew how vain and proud he was. He wouldn't show any modesty. Hence, she raised her eyebrow and glanced at Mu Yen. What's so difficult about that? Those are just words. Mu Yen sighed. You couldn't do it before. Feng Wu said, You don't know how hard I worked. I didn't know I had it in me. She knew Sakia could hear their conversation. Her words were for him. She didn't know Sakia felt guilty for how he treated his student. Just then a person came out. Miss Mu, the raw materials are ready. Feng Wu immediately recognized the person. Wasn't her name Sakurin? Feng Wu had fought this girl in a leather dress in the arena earlier. The girl had a childlike face but was very well endowed. Many teenage boys couldn't take their eyes off her chest. Sakurin was the one who had asked for Fuhara's help, but Fuhara was later decapitated by Feng Wu. Why was she here? Seeing Feng Wu stare at Sakurin, Mu Yen smacked her on the head. Bu Jingyu, you're only 12. You're way too young to stare at a girl like that. Feng Wu didn't know what to say. She had just been feeling amazed at the difference between their cup sizes. She was sure she was the more adorable one. Mu Yen suddenly asked Sakurin, I heard you fought that Feng Wu earlier. 3064 Are you serious? Mu Yen suddenly asked Sakurin, I heard you fought that Feng Wu earlier. Feng Wu's stomach lurched. They were talking about her. She had to listen carefully. Feng Wu pricked up her ears. Mu Yen and Sakurin walked away as they talked, and Feng Wu followed them. The two young women didn't notice Feng Wu. Sakurin said, Yes, I've met that Feng Wu. Mu Yen sat down and gestured for Sakurin to sit down beside her. She then asked in a seemingly casual tone, I heard Feng Wu is very pretty. Feng Wu couldn't help but glance at Mu Yen. She then looked at Sakurin. She was curious about what other people thought about her. Her mother was the most beautiful woman in the Junwo Empire, so she was very confident in her own beauty. However, Sakurin seemed to be describing a different person. Sakurin smirked. Pretty? I don't think so. Mu Yan's eyes lit up. She's not. Sakurin said grimly, no, she's not pretty at all. I don't think she's that different from every other human being. Of course, Sakurin hated Feng Wu. After Feng Wu defeated her, Sakurin fetched Fuhara to help her, but Fuhara was killed by Feng Wu in the end. Sakurin hated Feng Wu to the bone. She could never view Feng Wu in an objective way. I see. Mu Yan was relieved. Sakurin said, she's nowhere near as pretty as you. She wanted to work for Mu Yan. Seeing the latter feeling threatened by Feng Wu's beauty, Sakurin began to slander Feng Wu. Truth or not, Mu Yan liked what she heard. You flatter me. Mu Yan shook her head. There's no need to say such nice things about me. I know I'm the prettiest person only in the Dongsang Kingdom. Sakurin didn't know what to say. Mu Yan asked, I heard Feng Wu is very capable. Is that true? Sakurin couldn't bring herself to tell Mu Yan that she was indeed the prettiest person in the Dongsang Kingdom. Hearing the question, she was glad to change the subject. Who told you that? That's such an overstatement. Mu Yan was pleased, but she still feigned a surprised tone. Is that not true? Sakurin said, Of course not. Feng Wu is only a level 2 spiritual king. Mu Yan said, I heard she won battles in the junior arena. Sakurin said, What? Well, that's because all our capable people are here, guarding the immortal spiritual fruit. In fact, the Dongsang Kingdom had been watching the tree for a while. Night Owl was bold enough to fight to the death because he knew what the fruit could do. Fearing that Mu Yan wouldn't believe her, Sakurin said, Lord Pan has the best level 3 and level 4 spiritual kings in our kingdom. Any of them can kick Feng Wu's ass. Feng Wu stared at Sakurin in astonishment. Was she serious? 3065 abashed. Sakurin had no idea that Lord Pan's talented assassins had been swallowed up by the sacred imperial spider before being spat out as bones. All Feng Wu knows is to brag about herself. Sakurin smirked. Feng Wu was speechless. Mu Yan was glad to hear that. There's something else. Mu Yan finally got to the question she wanted to ask the most. I heard that Jun Linyuan. Her tone softened when she mentioned that name. She paused a little before asking, Is Jun Linyuan in love with Feng Wu? Sakurin almost jumped to her feet. She stared at Mu Yan. Please don't tell jokes like that. It's not funny. Mu Yan was surprised by her reaction. Sakurin said angrily, That's impossible. Who told you that? It's a malicious lie. Mu Yan asked, Is that not the case? Sakurin said, Of course not. You have no idea what Feng Wu is like. Feng Wu watched Sakurin curiously. Sakurin made a displeased noise. Feng Wu is willing to die for the crown prince. That's how much she likes him. Feng Wu had been listening with her chin resting on her hands, but she was dumbfounded when she heard this. I'm not. That's not true, thought Feng Wu. She sat up and had no written all over her face. However, Sakurin was so focused on slandering Feng Wu that she didn't notice the look on the boy's face. Nor did Mu Yan notice Feng Wu's reaction. She was very pleased, but she still feigned a concerned tone. Is that so? That's a bit over the top. Sakurin said, If the crown prince is in love with Feng Wu, I'll chop my head off. Feng Wu blurted out, Great? Her stomach lurched when she said that. She wondered why she was confident enough to say that. Surely, His Royal Highness wasn't. Oh no. Feng Wu felt so abashed that she wanted to bury her face in her hands. Sakurin and Mu Yan were surprised by her loud voice. They both turned around and glared at Bu Jingyu. What can you possibly know about this subject? This isn't a place for kids. Get lost. They pushed Feng Wu out of the room. Feng Wu was speechless. She looked back at Sakurin and Mu Yen and thought about the quickest way to form a friendship. The best way was to find a common enemy and say bad things about the latter together. With a common enemy, two people would soon become best friends. Feng Wu was speechless. That worked every single time. Sakurin was much lower in status, but she and Mu Yen were holding hands now. Feng Wu never thought she would contribute to their friendship. There was nothing new about their conversation, so Feng Wu decided to leave them. She had much more important things to do. She stood by the door and looked at the tree. 3066 The fruit is ripe. She would use one immortal spiritual fruit for Jun Linyuan and keep the other one for Bao Air. Perfect. A smile appeared on Feng Wu's face. Wait. She suddenly returned to her senses. She was daydreaming. The two immortal spiritual fruits would ripen at different times. One was almost ready, while the other one needed over 2 weeks. How was she going to steal the first immortal spiritual fruit, wait here for 2 weeks, and take the other fruit? Another option was to remove the entire tree. Was that doable? Feng Wu inched toward the tree until she was right next to it. She looked at the roots and shook her head. Moving the tree would be extremely difficult. Somebody had set up a formation around the tree. It was a level 9 formation. Feng Wu was astonished. What did that mean? A formation of that level cost a tremendous amount of energy. The frightening question was, who created this formation? Elder Mei of Imperial College was only a level 8 formation master. How expensive! Feng Wu scratched her head. She was a level 8 formation master at most, and there was nothing she could do here. She hadn't gained enough experience yet. It was deep into the night, and Sakia was resting in a chair. He was following his students' every move. What are you looking at? Sakia glanced at Feng Wu. Feng Wu was speechless. So, he wasn't asleep. Had he seen how she was drooling over the fruit? Feng Wu was flustered. Come over here, Sakia said solemnly. Feng Wu cringed a little and wondered what Sakia was up to. She moved as slowly as possible, but had to stand by Sakia in the end. Sakia rubbed his temples when he saw his student's reaction. If you're interested in formations, put your heart into it, said Sakia with his eyes closed. I told you to memorize the manual on level 3 formations. Have you done that yet? Sakia didn't know what else he could do. He was the only level 9 formation master in the Dongsang Kingdom, but his student was so lazy and dumb. Memorize that book. Don't come out until you've done that, Sakia said harshly. Feng Wu raised an eyebrow. It seemed Sakia was the level 9 formation master who had set up this formation. Sakia was as talented as he was said to be. Sakia suddenly moved, and the next second he was holding the immortal spiritual fruit. Feng Wu was astonished. That fruit. Her fruit. Why did it have to come off now? The other one was still in the tree, and she was flustered when she saw the one in Sakia's hand. Was it impossible for her to obtain both of them? Feng Wu suppressed her heartbeat so that Sakia wouldn't sense it. There was no need to do that, though. Sakia was as excited as she was. Of course, he didn't let any of his emotions show. 3067 No other way. Sakia headed for the cottage and Feng Wu followed him. He had the immortal spiritual fruit. Things were happening so fast and out of her control. Feng Wu followed Sakia and racked her brain. The fruit had come off so suddenly. How could she get it back? It had to fall into Sakia's hands, of all people. How hopeless. Feng Wu looked at the tree. The other fruit would need at least half a month to ripen, not to mention it was protected by a level 9 formation. Maybe she could try to solve it, but Sakia was watching her every move. How could she steal that fruit? No, that fruit could wait. This fruit was more important. Sakia reached the cottage when Mu Yen and Sakurin came out of it, holding hands. Mu Yen was thrilled to see the fruit. Mr. Sakia, is it ripe? Sakia nodded. The first one is. Refine it now. His Royal Highness is waiting. Mu Yen held the fruit with both hands in excitement. Of course. Once I make the medicine, His Royal Highness can take it, and his cultivation ability will recover. Sakurin said, after His Royal Highness takes this medicine, the other crown prince will. Sakiya gave her a cold glance. Sakurin immediately stopped talking. Go, Sakiya told Mu Yen. Mu Yen nodded, yes, of course. To keep the immortal spiritual fruit fresh, they had built a refinement room here. The fire they used was from the volcano. That was why they had picked this spot. The medicine made by the fire of the volcano would be extraordinary. Feng Wu watched as Mu Yen took the immortal spiritual fruit into the room and closed the door behind her. Sakiya then set up a formation outside the room. A level 9 formation would consume too much spiritual energy, so he set up a level 8 formation instead. However, he added a series of inscriptions on top of it. How meticulous! Feng Wu's plans were rendered futile by these defensive mechanisms. Feng Wu searched her brain. Sakiya suddenly looked up and glanced at her. Why are you still here? What? Feng Wu was caught off guard. There. Sakiya pointed at the room next door. Don't come out until you've memorized the level 3 manual. Feng Wu said, but master? Sakiya stuffed a book into Feng Wu's hands. Memorize this as well while you're at it. Feng Wu put on a disappointed expression. Sakiya didn't leave. He stood on the porch and looked up at the sky. Everything was under his control. Feng Wu didn't know what to do. Why wouldn't the man get a life? Why did he have to watch over everything? 3068 Tread carefully. Understand? Sakiya stared at Feng Wu, his tone calm but intimidating. It seemed he was losing his patience. Feng Wu ran inside and closed the door. What should she do now? She paced up and down the room, her head spinning. The immortal spiritual fruit wasn't that hard to refine. With Mu Yan's skills, it would take her about 2 hours to finish the job. After that, Feng Wu put herself in Sakiya's shoes. If she were him, would he send the medicine back this very night, knowing that his crown prince was in urgent need of it? Obviously, the answer was yes. Would he do it himself? Definitely. The next 2 hours would be the only time that Sakiya would be separated from the fruit. If she wanted to do something, now was her only chance. Feng Wu took a deep breath and asked herself, shall I take the risk? It would be dangerous. She had to tread carefully, or she would be killed. If she didn't do something now, she would lose the immortal spiritual fruit, and Night Owl would recover his strength earlier than Jun Linyuan. After that, Night Owl would attack the fortress. Feng Wu's stomach lurched when she imagined the possible consequences. She didn't have a choice. She had to do it. Taking a deep breath, she recalled how Sakiya set up the formation. That was Sakiya's mistake. He could never have expected that his student had been replaced. The boy not only wasn't his student, who couldn't understand a level 3 formation, he was also a level 8 formation master. Feng Wu never forgot anything she had seen, and she had the phoenix pen. Feng Wu recalled all the details of the formation and knew she could solve it. However, when she looked out the window, she saw Sakiya still standing in the same spot and looking to the horizon. She tried to figure out how to solve the formation and sneak into the refinement room without making a sound. Her gaze landed on the wall. The refinement room was covered by Sakiya's formation, and that room was right on the other side of the wall. That was her only chance. Feng Wu crouched down by the wall and worked on the formation. A level 8 formation was within her capability. She moved very slowly so that Sakiya wouldn't hear her. She finally opened a crack in the formation and erased the inscriptions with the phoenix pen. When she stole a glance at the window, she saw Sakiya still standing there with his back to her. Even the wisest man could make a mistake. Sakiya thought all he needed to do was guard the door, and had overlooked what was going on inside the room. Feng Wu just happened to be a skillful formation master, and she possessed the phoenix pen. She quietly dug a tunnel under the wall. The room was right next door, so she didn't need to do much. Before long, she dug a tunnel wide enough for her to pass through. And there was no time to lose. She entered the tunnel and emerged behind Mu Yen, who was refining the immortal spiritual fruit. 3069 Clever Feng Wu. Mu Yen murmured to herself, "I'm so good at this. I'm a supreme-level medicine refiner. That Feng Wu isn't my match." Feng Wu shook her head. Mu Yen then sighed. "If Night Owl uses this fruit, what about Crown Prince Jun? I feel sorry for him. Do I like him more than Night Owl?" Feng Wu listened in amazement. She didn't know what to say. The woman should be concentrating on her work. She was so distracted that her refinement could fail at any moment. She was working on the immortal spiritual fruit. However, that it seemed her worst fear was about to come true. Something suddenly happened. Mu Yen paled because she had made a mistake. Flames rose out of the cauldron, almost burning her face. Feng Wu wanted to slap this woman. What was she thinking? She would never succeed. Feng Wu hit the woman on the back of her neck. Feng Wu was a level 3 spiritual king, and she spared no effort. Mu Yen passed out right away. The fire was still burning. It contained the Peacock King's terrifying energy. Feng Wu was going to grab the half-finished potion and leave the room, but she heard Sakiya's voice outside. He must have noticed the noise. "Mu Yen." Sakiya's tone was still very authoritative. Feng Wu sighed when she saw Mu Yen lying on the ground with half her clothes burned off. She had no choice but to reply, "Yes, sir." Sakiya asked, "Is everything all right?" Feng Wu said, "It's nothing serious." Sakiya said, "All right." He was silent after that, but Feng Wu knew he had become more vigilant. Feng Wu looked at the potion and knew she had no choice but to finish the refinement. She was a much better medicine refiner than Mu Yen. Using the fire from the volcano, she made a golden potion that gave off the most pleasant aroma. The smell filled the room and floated out the window. Sakiya must have smelled it because Feng Wu heard his footsteps. He walked back and forth outside, and even his footsteps sounded pleased. Feng Wu could guess what he was thinking. With this potion, Night Owl would recover first. They could destroy the fortress and northern border city. After that, they could invade the entire empire. Feng Wu took a deep breath. She would never let them do that. The potion was finished. As for Mu Yen, Feng Wu had refined the skin of the immortal spiritual fruit while making the potion, and the liquid was green. Ordinary immortal spiritual fruit potion was indeed green. Only Feng Wu knew what she had put in that green potion. She left it in the cauldron and returned to her room with the golden one. To stop the aroma from spilling out, Feng Wu put the potion in her storage space. She returned to her room safely. 3070 Astonished. She returned to her room safely. After that, she filled in the tunnel, leaving no traces behind. Even if Sakiya noticed something, he wouldn't suspect Bu Jingyu. After noticing that there were 2 immortal spiritual fruits, Feng Wu had been thinking of how to use Bu Jingyu's status. If she wanted to blow her cover, she could slip away now. However, she would need to make some arrangements if she wanted to use this identity again. Luckily, Feng Wu had been preparing for that the whole time. Sakiya frowned, feeling he had waited for too long. Gucci asked, "Shall I check on her?" It had been 2 hours, and Mu Yen had said it wouldn't take her longer than that. Sakiya nodded. Gucci knocked on the door, but Mu Yen was still lying unconscious on the floor. Feng Wu's blow knocked her out for an hour, and the knocking woke her up. "What?" Mu Yen slowly opened her eyes. She had a slight headache and struggled to sit up. She was suddenly struck by a thought, and she jumped to her feet. The immortal spiritual fruit. She remembered something had gone wrong, and there was a big fire. "Gosh," she cried out. That potion was for Night Owl. If something went wrong, Sakiya would kill her. Her cry startled the people outside. Gucci and Sakiya looked at each other. The next second, Sakiya broke his own formation without knocking on the door. "What happened?" Sakiya asked Mu Yen, his face darkening. Mu Yen was quite a sorry sight. Nearly half of her clothes had been burned off. She had some of her eyebrows, and her face was blackened by the smoke. Sakiya rushed to the cauldron. He couldn't care less if Mu Yen died, but nothing could happen to the immortal spiritual fruit. He was relieved when he saw the green potion in the cauldron. He then asked Mu Yen, what happened? Mu Yen wanted to cry. She couldn't bring herself to tell him that she had failed. She had promised him that it would be a piece of cake. Mu Yen was about to apologize for her failure when she spotted the green potion in the cauldron. Holy crap! Wasn't that the potion she had been trying to make? It couldn't be anything else. But Mu Yen remembered there had been an accident halfway through the refinement, but she couldn't remember what happened after that. Mr. Sakiya had set up a formation, and it was impossible for anybody to come in. That was to say, Mu Yen reached a shocking conclusion. And that was, I made the potion in my sleep. OMG! I'm amazing! Mu Yen was astonished by her supposed talent. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.